Good afternoon, I'm Giovanni Dennis with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're joining us online at onespotmedia.com. The suspect in the case involving Khanice Jackson is expected to be charged today. There's been public outrage since Miss Jackson's body was found in bushes near the Dike Road in Portmore, St. Catherine last Friday. Head of the Police Corporate Communications Unit, Senior Superintendent Stephanie Lindsay, shared the latest in their investigation.
She was reported missing. The necessary follow-up was done, investigation. That investigation led the investigators to her body on Friday. Following that, it led to a person who was first named as a person of interest that is now a suspect. And the person is expected to be charged sometime today for the alleged murder of this young lady. It's the sole suspect in the matter, and from all indication, they do have the right person they believe is alleged to have committed the murder. So there are no other persons that they are pursuing at this time.
Concern is being raised about meager sentences being handed down to criminals who carry out vicious attacks against women and girls. The matter was raised following the brutal killing of 20-year-old accounting clerk Khanice Jackson, whose body was found on Friday near the Portmore fishing village. O'Shane Masters reports.
Outrage across the island following the gruesome discovery of the body of Khanice Jackson on Friday. It's believed the 20-year-old accounting clerk was raped and then strangled. It led to renewed cries for an end to violence against women. But for Executive Director of Eve for Life, Joy Crawford, more is needed. Ms. Crawford says one such measure which could assist is a Sexual Harassment Act. She believes that more effort must be placed on passing that legislation into law.
Our laws are weak. I think at one point we had a conversation that if the rapists or the murderers were found to have acted, for example, using gender inequality as one of their motives, or if it involved children and girls, then the sentences would have been more. But then we moved to a situation of plea bargaining.
Now, plea bargaining was instituted in 2017 as a means to reduce the court's time in hearing a case and also reducing the sentence of the perpetrator of the act.
We do have so much unfair legislation that put women at a burden. We also have all of these sentences that are really, a slap on the wrist. So justice is objective or subjective to too many other things, apart from the crimes being clear and the sentences being maximum. We don't do maximum sentence in Jamaica. We always have to do something that runs parallel or that softens the blow.
Head of the JCF's Corporate Communications Branch, Senior Superintendent of Police Stephanie Lindsay, says the laws to deal with missing persons within the JCF is adequate.
We have what we believe is a robust policy. Once it follows, it will help, because sometimes, when it comes to these missing persons, for instance, in the case of the young lady that we're discussing now, Candice, by the time the police got the report, our investigators have found that she would have already died by the time it was reported to the police. So even if the police had put all the resources that we have into that missing person investigation, the outcome would have been the same. If there's no one fix, sometimes it's not law enforcement the law that's gonna make the difference. It's something else. The law, it will hold you accountable, but it may not necessarily prevent you from doing something that you intend to do.
Both women were speaking on Monday's edition of the Morning Agenda on Power 106 FM. O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
16 more Jamaicans have died from COVID-19. This brings the death toll to 586. 14 of the persons who died are from Kingston and St. Andrew, 1 from St. Catherine and 1 from St. James. 2 of the cases were previously under investigation. Meanwhile, the country has recorded 287 new cases. The number of confirmed cases now stands at 38,514. Kingston and St. Andrew recorded most of the new cases with 78, followed by St. James with 45 and St. Catherine with 39. Meanwhile, 477 persons remain in hospital. 42 are critically ill. There are 20,334 active cases. The St. Elizabeth police are reporting that 50 people were arrested in the parish between Friday night and Sunday night for breaching the Disaster Risk Management Act. Head of the St. Elizabeth Police Division, Deputy Superintendent Narda Sims, told our news centre that 39 of the arrests were in Santa Cruz, while 7 were in Junction. DSP Sims says the people were caught gathering during the curfew hours, including at bars. The individuals were all offered station bail and are scheduled to appear in the St. Elizabeth Parish Court on April 26. Meanwhile, 46 persons were arrested and charged over the weekend in Hanover for breaching the orders. In the meantime, the Hanover police says 5 motorcycles were also seized. Director of Complaints for the Independent Commission of Investigations Southeastern Region, Nigel Morgan, has died. Head of Indicom Hugh Faulkner says Mr. Morgan died in hospital this morning. Mr. Faulkner says Mr. Morgan, who was the agency's first Director of Complaints, had been battling the effects of COVID-19. Mr. Faulkner says other Indicom staff members have tested positive for the virus.
But thank God, recovery took place. The necessary quarantine, the necessary isolation where persons had the vaccine and the requisite protocol set out by the Ministry of Health and Wellness were always followed.
He says Indicom staff have also been vaccinated.
In fact, your media house was one of those that had published our media release. We published that release, I think, the Tuesday, and by the Thursday night, we were advised, and our staff went to the police officers club the Friday morning, and those who are desirous of having the vaccine were vaccinated.
Now, earlier this month, Indicom had called for the authorities to outline the COVID-19 vaccination schedule for its members. Jamaica might be forced to temporarily suspend the vaccine program if expected supplies of the COVID-19 vaccine for April are not delivered. The country is scheduled to receive 26,000 doses from COVAX in the first week of April. A further 100,000 doses are to be delivered the following week under the private sector initiative with the National Health Fund. However, following news of a halt in vaccine exports from India last week, those shipments are now in doubt.
The real challenge is over the next month to 6 weeks, and we have to manage that, but we'll keep the country informed on where we are. And if we have to suspend for a while, then we will just have to say so. It will be regrettable, and we're hoping not, but it is a possibility. Let's hope that it doesn't occur.
Dr. Tufton says the current supply of vaccines could last another 3 weeks.
We have administered to date about 33,000 or thereabouts, which is approximately half of the stocks that we have. We have up to 64,400. And so we do have stocks to last us a few more weeks, maybe 2 or 3, depending on the take-up. And we will moderate the programs we have over this period.
The United Nations says it expects the Serum Institute of India will resume full deliveries of the AstraZeneca vaccine under the COVAX facility by May. Now, the World Health Organization-backed COVAX program supplies vaccines to developing countries like Jamaica. And it's now time for a break here on the Midday News, but please stay with us. We'll have much more when you return. Welcome back. We're continuing the news. Raft captains on the Rio Grande in Portland are bemoaning the impact the first weekend of the national lockdown has had on their already disrupted livelihood. With 2 more weekends of national lockdown to go, the raft captains are uncertain about how they will provide for their families. Sandy Williams has their story.
Parked rafts ready and waiting to go out, except there are no customers. This was the reality of raft captains on the Rio Grande in Portland over the weekend. They have been struggling since last year from the partial shutdown of the tourism sector brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. They claim in the last year, business has been slow.
Sometimes like for a week or sometime even for a month, sometimes some captain didn't make a trip on the river. Understand? And you know, if we don't work, we get no pay.
Sometimes I don't leave my home. I just go to my farm and do whatever and came back and stay at home.
However, the weekends gave a glimmer of hope for the raft captains, as some people would come out to raft. But after the first weekend of the national lockdown, the raft captains' small fortunes sunk.
Lockdown affect everybody, even in the one community too. You know, not the raftmen alone, the whole community, because the raftmen money circulate all over. You know, so everybody getting beaten right now.
The lockdown, it's really terrible.
The government has imposed 3 weekends of lockdowns from March 26 until April 12 in an effort to rein in a runaway wave of COVID-19 infections. Until then, uncertainty lingers among the raft captains as to when or where their next meal and payday will be realized.
We have to just live and see what's going on. Do what we can do. We can't do nothing.
Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
A fire at a hardware store in Flanker St. James nearly claimed the life of a woman and her baby on Sunday. As we hear in this report from Cody and Barrett, they were rescued by her father and the residents after lawmen nearby failed to assist.
It was almost a tragic ending for a young woman and her baby on Sunday when she was trapped in a burning building. According to reports, this hardware store on Mackenzie Drive in Flanker St. James caught fire around midday.
So me get a bucket and start out the fire. When I check a stack, it start bigger. So me jump the gate and go over the fire behind the shutter. So when I look, I see a gas jump right at the shutter. So we end up can't face to try out to find the sun. So me fly the gate and I come up with the police and say, I want to call the fire truck now. They must say, boy, I don't feel them work.
After screams were heard coming from the second floor of the building, residents sprung into action. They tried to burst open the gate to enter the building. It's understood that the woman trapped inside had made a phone call to her father, who rushed from Seaview Hill to rescue her.
So when he fly come down now, then jump me cause of fence. So when they jump because of fence, they manage to pull the gate. When they pull the gate, then take a baby first and then take her out. Then carry the then make the baby jump over then get the baby to her over the fence. And then after a while, Femi cousin come and fly film gate. After we try broke off the gate all long and the police them me know something in that truck where they could have help we fi bust the gate all long. And they don't do nothing.
Shortly after, 3 fire units and an ambulance arrived.
Upon arrival, fire was seen confined to a hardware. Operation commenced immediately and the fire was quickly brought under control. Currently, the cause of the fire is being investigated by the department.
Luckily, no injuries were reported. The estimate of damage is not yet determined. Cody and Barrett, TVJ News.
The Office of the Services Commission's refusal to release information on the job description of Police Commissioner Major General Anthony Anderson is causing discomfort among Jamaicans. This following calls for the information to be made public. More in this report.
The Office of the Services Commission refused to grant access to information request for the contract of Commissioner of Police Major General Anthony Anderson. General Anderson has been at the helm of the Jamaica Constabulary Force since March 2018. Throughout his time so far, states of public emergency have been used to contain crime. The top cop is again in the spotlight as there are now calls for his contract to be made public.
We would want to know the performance-related areas of that contract, because that has to be part of such a contract, we believe. And that's been the case where we don't know. It leaves it open to question in terms of whether or not the individual is being improperly rewarded in relation to whether or not they are achieving the objectives that were set for them.
Mrs. Davis White says how the matter is being handled is unacceptable. She wants the government to implement measures to facilitate transparency going forward.
What is it that you have to hide that you cannot actually make this contract known? And I would say to anybody who is seeking to take up a contract in the public sector, you have to recognize that a public sector job is a little bit different from a private sector job.
because you are answerable to the people of Jamaica.
Head of the private sector organization of Jamaica, Howard Mitchell, wants the use of non-disclosure clause in government contracts to be abolished.
We are uncertain and there's a credibility issue going on here. And I think that we must realize how serious this point is, and we must treat it with respect, and we must treat the people of Jamaica with respect, and at least explain the position. This is fundamental to the relationship between the people and the state.
Kodian Barrett, TVJ News.
Further afield, medical practitioners overseas are warning that the globe could see a fourth surge in COVID-19 cases. This, they warn, is due to the rise in the number of cases of variants of the virus. However, experts say this new surge can be avoided. Details from the CNN.
New cases of COVID-19 are on the rise again. Doctors Ashish Jha, Anthony Fauci, and Scott Gottlieb caution that it's up to us to keep this rise from shifting to a surge. Now, variants are playing a part in the case count.
This is basically what we were all saying was going to happen around the second half of March.
The variant first identified in the UK is more contagious and now likely to become dominant, but it's not the only reason behind the rise.
What we're likely seeing is because of things like spring break and pulling back on the mitigation methods that you've seen now. Several states have done that.
A lot of the spread is happening among younger people, 10 to 19, but also 20 to 29. That's the group that is moving around, kind of relaxed and getting infected.
Experts say it's not time to relax yet. We need to hold on to our masks, avoid crowds, and hold off on travel until we can get more people vaccinated.
To news and sports now at sports time, the West Indies are 113 for 3 on day one of the second test against Sri Lanka in Antigua. Now captain Craig Brathwaite is not out on 37, and with him is Jamaica's Jermaine Blackwood on 16. Now after being sent in to bat, Jamaicans John Campbell and Nkrumah Bonner were dismissed cheaply. Campbell went for 5 and Bonner went for a duck. Now Kyle Myers was later dismissed for 49. Suranga Lakmal has so far taken 2 for 25 for the visitors. The first test ended in a draw. And that's the Midday News. I'm Giovanni Dennis. On behalf of the entire team, have a good afternoon.